In this tutorial, we will be covering how to connect Arcane Desktop to Resolume Arena via OSC. Now, if this is the first Arcane tutorial that you've seen, I highly recommend watching our overview video. There should be a link at the top of your screen now that will take you there. So the first thing that we need to do is open our Arena preferences here, go to OSC, and make sure that OSC input is checked. I think 7000 will be set by default, but any available port there is fine. And then we should open the monitoring window to make sure that we can see incoming messages. Then in Arcane, we'll go to our settings, go to OSC, click Add Sender, open up the connections panel here, set this to the same port that is set in Resolume, and hit save. So now that we've done that, we should be able to hit send test message, and we can see every time we press this button that a message will appear in the monitoring window here. Now, if you're connecting Arcane on one device and Resolume's running on another, instead of localhost, you'll need to put the IP address of the device that's running Resolume. And that's usefully displayed here in the OSC preferences window. So once you have got messages successfully being sent from Arcane to Resolume, we can then start setting up specific bindings. So in Resolume, if we click on shortcuts up here, click on Edit OSC, we will then be given an overlay of everything that we can control using OSC. So to begin with, I want to control the scale for the main video here, main video group. So I've selected that, I click on Group, scroll down and click on Scale here. So Resolume then gives me two different options for how I can control this parameter. One of them, it hard codes the group number, so this is group 1. And the other one is allowing me to control this parameter for whichever group is currently selected. I'm going to choose the first one because I don't want my group selection to affect which group's being controlled, so I'll copy this. Then in Arcane, I click Add Binding, paste in the path there. So right off the bat, Arcane will start sending the minimum value, the 0 value there, which we can see has made the scale 0%, which probably is not what we want. So if we look at Resolume here, this particular parameter has a float between 0 and 1. And if we want to set the minimum value to 100%, so it's probably 0.1 here. So I'll put 0.1, and we can see now that Resolume has set that to 100%. Now, I'm going to close this here. And then you can click on this test button here, which will allow you to try modifying the parameter between its minimum and maximum values to see what it does to the composition. Now, at its maximum value there, that is probably a lot higher than we want to have it. So I'm going to set this to 0.15 for now. And that looks like a much better range that we want Arcane to be able to control. So I'll clear that for now. The next thing that I want to be able to control is advancing to the next clip on this layer here. So I'm going to click on this button here, and it gives me two more paths that I can control, either layer 4 or the currently selected layer. I'm going to pick layer 4 always. Click Add a new binding here, paste in the path. I'm going to give this a name, next clip. I'm also going to label this one as well, scale. It orders this by name by default. Now here, if we look at the OSC type tag, this has int 0 or 1, which means that it requires slightly different values to be sent from Arcane. So we could set this to integer, but that's not going to have the desired effect because it specifically requires the value 0 or 1 and not a range of different values. So here we're actually going to select on-off button. And what on-off button will do is it will send an OSC message whenever a button needs to be pressed on or off. And we can open up the settings here to fine-tune this. So the message type is integer, which is correct. It requires int 0 or 1. For when the button is pressed on, it requires 1, and when the button's off, it requires 0. Now these threshold values here are for when you have a spell file that has envelope and values that change over time, which is typically what we'll assign to the faders and things like the scale. Then you can set different thresholds for when the button should be pressed or released. We'll leave these at their default for now, which will get you what you want most of the time. And then we can also click on the test button here to test this button. So I'm going to click press and hold, and you can see, and I'm going to disable the shortcut mode by pressing escape in Resolume here. But you can see every time I click on press and hold, the button, I can press it and then release, press it and release, and it is doing the same thing in Resolume. I can also toggle the button on and off this other mode here. So those two bindings are now set up. We've seen that they're controlling these parameters properly in Resolume. And you can configure really any property on any clip or layer or group or the dashboard, whatever you want to control, all of that can be controlled via OSC. So now that we're able to control Resolume with these bindings, we need to link them to a specific output group. Now we covered output groups in a previous video. If you remember, our first 3 output groups that we define are automatically linked to the internal visualizer, which we're not going to be using today. I'm going to create a 4th group here that's going to be specifically for advancing to the next clip. And then back in the OSC tab, I'm going to link the next clip binding to the next clip output group and link the scale to group 1. Now, if we go to our output mapper, you can see here that we have group 1 set up. And if I adjust these values, it's already adjusting the scale there. And I can click on the trigger button for this output group, and you can see that that is all working. So let's load a track. I'm going to load a track that Arcane already has a spell for. So load, and now we have that there. So I can hit play here, open up percussion, and I'm going to connect the metronome to the scale, and you can see there that that triggers correctly. I can also connect this particular one metronome to the clip, or I can connect the bass drum to the clip advance, and you can see that also works. So yeah, that all seems to be working. And I think we'll leave it there for today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you'd like to sign up and test this early software, please feel free to sign up to our waitlist on arcanewizards.com. Thanks for watching.